December 24th, 1943. A line of German POWs is marched through a Midwestern snowstorm, convinced they're headed for a firing squad. The gate swings open not to rifles, but to a widow's warm kitchen and a table set for Christmas. What happened inside that house that night? And how did one meal shatter years of propaganda and change their lives forever? December 1943. The war roars across oceans, but this night is quiet. In the United States, towns hang blackout curtains and buy war bonds. Factories shake the ground. Steel mills breathe fire. Trains and trucks never stop. Food is counted by little ration books. Coffee, sugar, and tires are scarce. But shelves are not empty. Radios hum with news from far away. Churches light purple candles for Advent. Snow lies in smooth sheets on roofs. New camps rise at the edge of small towns. Wood barracks sit behind tall barbed wire and bright yard lamps. Watchtowers stand 10 feet over the fence. Military police make their rounds with heavy steps. Local sheriffs help, but the army is in charge. Letters in and out are checked and stamped. Lights out is strict. Phones are party lines. The street can hear a call. Law feels close and strong here. The war has taken workers. Many men are gone to fight, so hands are short. To pick fruit, cut wood, and fix roads, the Army sends POW work groups. A rule called Geneva Law says they must be treated well. They get food, a warm bed, and small canteen coupons. Still, most townsfolk keep their distance. They stare, then look away. They lock doors just in case. Carl is 19 and thin as a rail. He grew up in Saxony, where his father worked the tracks. Last spring, he wore desert tan and stood with the Afrika Korps. In Tunisia, he ran out of water, then out of luck. Now he wears a plain coat with a big PW painted on the back. He tries to believe what he was told. Americans are soft and cruel. He tells himself not to hope. Eleanor Thompson is 34. Folks call her Ellie. She keeps a small farm on the edge of town. Her husband never came back from Sicily. People bring eggs to trade and words to ease the ache. She nods, thanks them, and goes on with her chores. Pastor Reed visits with a hymn book and kind eyes. Sergeant Miller, even-tempered, runs work details and keeps a fair count. Dusk comes early. The sky turns iron gray at 4:30. The air is 12 degrees, and each breath bites like ice. 8 prisoners, Carl among them, line up at the gate. Boots crunch. A truck idles, then stalls. No one laughs. Someone whispers a special order has come. Someone else says, "They will take us where no one can see." The words hang like frost. They march 3 miles along a plowed road. Farm lights blink through trees like low stars. A lone dog barks and then goes silent. They pass a white church and a steel rail crossing. They turn down a lane marked by a mailbox with a black T. The guards say little. Carl counts steps to keep fear small. The lane ends at a dark yard and a farmhouse. The gate swings. A door opens. Warm gold spills softly across the snow. The first thing Carl smells is butter and coffee. The guards pause on the porch. Ellie stands in the doorway with a clean apron and red hands from work. "Merry Christmas," she says, soft but clear. Sergeant Miller unwraps his scarf and rests his rifle by the jamb. Inside. Heat rolls out like a blanket. A clock on the wall ticks steady, 1 beat each second. It smells of soap, bread. The kitchen glows. An iron range hums, its oven door warm to the touch. A big pot of green beans snaps on the back burner. A ham glistens on a pan, scored in tiny diamonds. 4 bowls of mashed potatoes sit stacked by the sink. Fresh rolls, 12 to a tray, shine with butter. Carl's mouth waters, and he looks away, ashamed of the hunger. Ellie sets out plates, 8 for the prisoners, 2 for herself and the sergeant. She places 1 empty chair at the head of the table and sets a small photo there. Her husband in uniform, smiling at them. "Grace," Ellie says. She folds her hands. "For all sons, on every side." The radio in the parlor plays a choir. "Silent Night" floats in, and then voices join in, 2 tongues. "Stille Nacht." Carl knows the words from home. The sound makes his chest ache in a new way. Then the shocks keep coming. Ellie asks the men to sit before she does. She serves them first. She fills each plate the same, no more for the guards, no less for the POWs. Sergeant Miller pours coffee and sets down a sugar bowl, real sugar, a heaping spoonful each. Outside the window, a truck rattles past on the plowed road. Red letters on the side read, Coca-Cola. Carl stares at the stacked glass bottles in the bed. He has seen such a thing only in posters. A neighbor boy hurries in with a pie. Steam leaks from the crust. Pumpkin, ma'am. He grins at the strange guests and slips out again. Ellie opens a cold box and brings out something impossible, a metal can packed with hard white ice cream. She scoops neat balls, 6 to a bowl, and passes them around with tiny spoons. Carl licks once and shivers. He cannot help it. In Germany, power fails at dusk. Here the lights do not flicker. Between bites, Carl studies the room and files facts. The windmill outside turns in the light wind, and the pump clacks, smooth. The stove burns hot without smoke. The road is clear for miles. On the shelf, ration books sit next to full jars. The store in town must be stocked enough to share. The radio does not hiss. The clock does not falter. Everything works. A thought rises, quiet and sharp. If this is the enemy, what was he taught to fear? He glances at the empty chair with the photo and feels a twist of shame he cannot name. He eats and listens and begins to doubt. The meal slows and the room grows calm. Ellie takes a small box from a shelf and brings it to the table. Inside are plain cards tied with red string. She passes one to each man and one to Sergeant Miller. Write a line for someone you miss, she says. If you have no address, leave it here. I will keep it safe. Carl turns the card in his fingers. His hand trembles as he writes his mother's name. Then he adds, I am alive. I ate well. Do not fear. The letters are plain and careful. Ellie reaches under the chair with the photo and lifts a folded scarf, gray wool, tight knit, soft to the cheek. She places it in Carl's hands. For your mother's peace, she says. The room goes still. A log snaps in the stove. Carl presses the scarf to his face and smells warm wool. He had braced for hard words and cold eyes. He finds welcome instead, and it unsettles him in a kind way. Boots thump on the porch. Pastor Reed steps in, snow on his shoulders. He carries a hymn book and a thin envelope. He reads a short letter from Ellie's husband, mailed before Sicily. Win the peace, the letter says. Feed who you can. Ellie's mouth tightens, but her voice is steady. We will do what he asked. Sergeant Miller hums a bar of, Oh come, oh come. Ellie asks each man to share one memory of home. One tells of a red bicycle. One tells of rye bread and jam. One tells of a sister who sang. Carl waits, then says, I remember train bells at dawn and cinnamon cake on Sundays. The words are small and bright. They rise into the warm air and do not fall. The men smile at one another as if a door has cracked. The talk fades. The clock ticks. Carl hears his own heart. He thinks of the poster back home that showed a fat, cruel Yank with a whip. He looks at the table, the cups, the radio, the scarf in his lap. The picture in his head tears along a seam he did not know was there. A quiet voice begins to write inside him. I thought power was the rifle by the door. Today I saw power in a hand that served me bread. I thought honor was a flag I must not stain. Today I saw honor in a woman who set one more plate. I thought we were hated. Today I was treated as a son. He wipes his eyes with the back of his hand and does not hide it. A draft slips under the door and cools his face. Outside, the wind turns the farm windmill. Inside, the stove hums. Snow whispers against the panes, soft as breath on frosted glass outside. Carl folds the scarf and holds it to his chest. He is still a prisoner, but in this room, tonight, he feels free. Spring 1946. The ship eases into Bremerhaven at dawn, under a thin gray sky. Carl stands on deck with a small suitcase, and the gray scarf folded flat on top. The air smells of coal smoke and salt. He steps onto the pier and joins a quiet line. Men carry duffels and small tins. A slow rail car takes them east at 10 miles an hour because many bridges are down. Fields lie brown and torn, stitched with black furrows. Towns drift by like shells with windows for eyes. Telegraph poles lean and wires sing in the cold. Carl keeps his hand on the scarf and thinks of a warm kitchen and a steady clock. He is going home, and home is hurt. He reaches Dresden after dark. The station has one working lamp and a sign made from a door. Snow lies in black ridges along the tracks. He walks 3 kilometers to his street, counting the steps to stay steady. The block where he grew up is mostly rubble. One wall leans like a book on a shelf. Smoke from wet coal hangs low and bitter. At his mother's door, he knocks once, then twice. She opens it a hand's width, stares, then pulls him in and holds him until his shoulders shake. The room is small and cold. A kettle ticks on a weak stove. A loaf no larger than his fist sits on a plate. He places Ellie's scarf on his mother's shoulders and feels the wool warm to her skin. He sets a bright keepsake on the shelf, a red Coca-Cola cap that caught porch light one clear night. His mother turns it in her fingers and smiles at the shine. From a worn envelope, he draws a recipe card marked Ellie's Bread, and a small New Testament pastor reed pressed into his hand. They read a short psalm and whisper, "Amen." He says he will bake the bread when flour comes, and he will set 1 extra plate each Christmas. In the weeks that follow, Carl finds work at a machine shop with a roof patched in tin. He asks the owner to allow a hot canteen. No one thinks well on an empty stomach, he says. By winter, they serve chicory coffee and potato soup at noon, 6 days a week. He writes rules on a board: fair turns, no shouting, clean hands. He keeps the tone even, like Sergeant Miller did. On Sundays, he joins a crew that cleans bricks for new walls and stacks them in rows of 20. He carries a pocket knife, a pencil, and the little book, and he keeps notes on parts and time. At Christmas, he tells the story of the widow and the table, and he lays a scarf across the back of the spare chair. Years pass. He marries a school teacher. In 1950, daughter Eleanor. When talk is hard, he says, "Power is not the rifle. Power is the hand that sets one plate."